This little video just talks about virtual memory. So you've probably come across main memory, which is RAM. So RAM, as we know, stores programs and data when they're being executed. So we've talked about the stored program concept before, where programs are loaded into main memory from the secondary storage device, from a hard disk or something similar, before they're executed. So the CPU can access RAM and execute instructions from there. So that is main memory. We've talked a bit about secondary storage, so hard disks and SSDs and that kind of thing, where we can store data on a permanent basis. So when the power's turned off, it's still there. So virtual memory is where, if the capacity of RAM in the system has become not enough to store all of the data and the programs that are needed while we're running, then we can use a part of the secondary storage as a temporary store. So instead of using RAM, or we can switch something basically out of RAM and put it onto the secondary storage. This is called virtual memory. So it's virtual memory because it's acting like RAM, but it's virtually there. It's not real RAM. It's not physical RAM chips. So big disadvantage with using virtual memory is it really slows down the system, because secondary storage takes a lot longer to access than main memory. So if we want to get something that's on secondary storage and move it back into RAM and then access it, it all takes time. So the way this tends to work is we use a page file. So it's called a page file because like a whole section of main memory is taken. So lots of addresses from main memory are taken and they're moved over and stored in this special area on the secondary storage that we're designating as virtual memory. So the whole page of that is stored, and we can store a number of different page files on secondary storage like that if we want to. So then when we need to access that particular program again, we can switch it back from secondary storage back across to main memory, switching something else out onto secondary storage. So we can keep swapping things from RAM into secondary storage and back again in order to simulate the idea of memory. So that's why it's called virtual memory, because it's simulating the idea of having more RAM. Now, a lot of systems these days have quite a lot of RAM, so they make far less use of virtual memory. But older systems with not so much RAM, they would be accessing the hard disk a lot. And if they were accessing the hard disk constantly, sometimes that was called disk thrashing. And you could see an access light on the hard disk going all the time. And that would really slow down an older style system with less RAM. Because RAM's a lot cheaper now and we can address more of it, then we can put more RAM into our machines and we need less of this idea. But this is still in the GCSE course, virtual memory. You need to be able to describe how it works. So an area from main memory is removed as a page file and placed into secondary storage. And then when it's needed again, it's moved back to main memory, probably swapped out for another page file that's going to be moved across for something else to be stored temporarily on that virtual memory. Now, obviously, we've thought about perhaps processors and how fast they go. So, like 1 gigahertz is a billion operations a second. So this process of switching things in and out of RAM is not all that visible to us as a user, apart from we may see the performance of the system loading things a bit slower if we have to use too much virtual memory. So that is the idea of virtual memory. So if you get asked a question about that at GCSE level, this is the answer. We've got this main memory idea of RAM. Data and programs are stored in there while they're being executed. We can move a page of that out onto the secondary storage, and then we can keep swapping them backwards and forwards as needed. That's virtual memory.